So you'll probably want an update. The last embryo transfer did not work, so those embryos did not survive. Again, it seemed like something takes, and then after a certain period of time, they stop being viable and die. The theory is possibly that male genetic material starts to take hold in the fifth day, and if there's something wrong with the genetic features of the male, that might make the embryos all fail at a certain period of time, which is what they seem to do. So we had an option. We could either do another IVF ICSI cycle with me, and there's all sorts of new technology that they can bring to bear. They now have a camera that can watch the embryo constantly through its development, so that they have a constant image of how it is splitting. And frankly, imagine seeing that. Also, they have ways of allowing embryos to develop instead of to the second or third day, to the fifth day, which is apparently, if they survive past that point, their chances of life are much higher. However, there certainly seems to be something wrong with me and my sperm. And going through IVF ICSI, it ends up costing between $20,000 and $30,000, depending on how many embryos she produces. And you end up with a situation where you have a lot of embryos sitting in a freezer, which is an alteration to the way that you see life. So the other option was to use donor sperm that we'd had from the original IVF cycle, where it wasn't required, and to do something called intrauterine insemination. In this cycle, she's given drugs to make her ovulate more actively than usual, but not certainly to the extent that she would in IVF. She's using a drug called Clomid, which probably you've heard about. And on the day that she is most receptive to sperm, and in fact I believe that's chemically induced, it's triggered, we would use donor sperm instead, which is certainly much more financially reasonable and might have a higher success rate, and is certainly not as invasive as an IVF cycle. I mean, IVF, it's a painful thing, and it's a lot of injectable drugs. And if really I'm not viable, then you give up on that and you move on. So the last little while has been giving up on that and moving on. And I want to say that I smile at every single kid that I see, because I do. I just inadvertently smile when I see little people. And I love my nieces and nephews, and I love my neighbors, and I think they're all wonderful kids. And I like to look at them and take pictures of them and make them smile and make them happy and make them learn things. But it's been about 8 years almost, I don't know, since the beginning of this blog, when I discovered that I was infertile, and it's essentially now giving up on the idea that the child will be mine. Now, I thought about doing this post very carefully, because I didn't want this child ever to feel that he or she is not mine. Of course you are mine. You are everything I've been hoping for, and I would give anything up for you. I know that now. But it's a change in attitude. We do not share a genetic commonality. Somewhat out there is a genetic commonality that is closer to you, that isn't me. We'll make that information available, I think, to our child when he or she requires that information, because from a health perspective it may be necessary. Does this mean that I'm welcoming some other person into our family? I don't feel that I am. Maybe to a certain extent, of course I am. I don't know how to cope with that sensation. I don't think there's an easy answer, and maybe it's something that I will think about again in the future. In the meantime, my wife has responded really well to the Clomid, and she has, under ultrasound, they do monitoring. So after you take a high dose of Clomid, apparently embryos are ripening within her, and 4 in fact are, 2 of which are very mature apparently, and 2 more which are interesting and they want to look at again tomorrow. So I'm wishing her all the best. She's willing to put up these drugs, and she's still trying to involve me and keep me feeling involved with the process. Does this make me feel that I am less a part of the process? I have to say, there's a certain extent that the situation, of course, divorces me from the situation. I think that it is a natural sensation. On the other hand, I know in my head that I should be very involved. I think it depends a little bit on the clinic as well. I think they can decide to choose to treat the guy that's there as an important aspect of this process, even if he has now fallen off the table. I have to say that not all health workers are sensitive to that fact. Maybe that's not their problem, but I think it is. I think it's important to understand that everybody involved has a perspective, and a family unit is being generated, and keeping the male feeling like his contribution matters, I think does matter. To me it matters anyway, and I don't think I'm the only one. Thank you very much for sharing in this journey. It has not been the one that I expected, but perhaps it was the one that was inevitable from the very start. If you look at the very first one, that's how this story goes. It's taken a long time to get here. There's a big difference in dates. So, older, wiser, hopefully more balanced. Ready to take care of you. A little person that maybe one day will look at this and say, oh, that's a daddy. Hopefully I am their daddy. That's all that I want. I want to be somebody's dad. Okay, take care. See you later. I will try to be in touch again. Be well, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.